This episode is sponsored by Smart Travel, a new podcast from NerdWallet. You know that one friend who always finds the best travel deals, picks the right cards, and somehow ends up in first class for the price of coach? Smart Travel is like that friend, but in podcast form. They cover all things finance, like which deals are actual deals and not just clickbait, when that convenient travel bundle might actually be a hidden tax in disguise, the smartest way to book flights without playing the guess the cheapest day game, how to avoid paying for upgrades you won't use. The nerds at NerdWallet know this stuff better than me, and that's why I feel great about recommending the Smart Travel podcast. After all, we nerds have to stick together. Travel smarter and spend less with the help from NerdWallet. Follow Smart Travel wherever you get your podcasts. I've been doing a little spring reset with my closet lately, focusing more on quality over quantity. Just building a wardrobe of pieces that are well made, versatile, and easy to reach for every day. That's why I keep coming back to Quince. The fabrics feel elevated, the fits are thoughtful, and the pricing actually makes sense. Quince makes beautiful everyday pieces using premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and super soft denim, with styles starting around $50. The spring pieces are lightweight, breathable, and effortless, the kind of things you can throw on and instantly look put together. With unseasonably warm weather in California this week, I'm recording this in shorts and my white European linen casual short sleeve shirt. Refresh your spring wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com/traveler for free shipping and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. Go to quince.com/traveler for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler, and thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. Amateur Traveler, episode 993. Today, Amateur Traveler talks about slave forts and markets, baby turtles and crocodiles, hippos and kunta kinte, as we go to West Africa, to Senegal, the Gambia, and Guinea-Bissau. This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler. Let's talk about West Africa. I would like to welcome to the show Jenna Fletcher from lifekinetictravel.com, who has come to talk to us about 3 countries in West Africa, Gambia, Senegal, and her target country, Guinea-Bissau. Jenna, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris. It's great to be here. I'm a big fan.
What is your connection to these countries? Why were you heading here?
I was headed here. Serendipity sometimes takes a role in where you decide to travel to. And several years ago, I was in Gabon talking to some travelers who it seemed like they had been absolutely everywhere. And they were telling me all about Guinea-Bissau. I had never heard of it. And so I started diving deep. And almost at exactly the same time, a good friend of mine reached out and she said, "Hey, I was reading this New York Times article about Guinea-Bissau and the Bijagos Islands in the archipelago. We should go there." And when something like that comes up twice in the matter of a couple of weeks, you got to take advantage of it. And so I started planning a trip over the course of about 2 years. Some things came up in between and just went there a couple of months ago.
Excellent. When we say it's in West Africa, to put it on the map here, Senegal and the Gambia, which is inside of Senegal, which is always strange, and Guinea-Bissau are some of the most Western countries in Africa.
Correct. Senegal, one of the places I'll talk about is the lighthouse, which is the most Western lighthouse in the African continent. And then Guinea-Bissau is directly south of Senegal. And if you're looking online, you'll have to scroll in because it is a tiny country.
Excellent. Why should someone go to this part of Africa?
It is absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. Green, flowers, animals. It is one of those spots that is definitely less explored by Western tourists. I think it gives you a different perspective on some of the history that you've learned about throughout school. And so I really enjoyed learning about the horrors of slavery while in Western Africa, and then also a different perspective on colonialism. So you get a little bit of everything. You get some adventure, you get some beauty, nature, and then you get a little bit of history.
Excellent. And did you do this as an independent traveler or were you on a tour for this?
Nope, I was a completely independent traveler. I did run into a snafu trying to get from Dakar to Guinea-Bissau, and I reached out to Scoots Travel, who gave me some advice, and they gave me such great advice. I said, can you just help me book that little piece of it? But mostly independent travel with a little help from some new friends.
Excellent. And what itinerary are you going to recommend for us?
Okay. I was in the region for 2 weeks. And so I am going to recommend a 2 week itinerary that starts in the Gambia, goes through Senegal, and then ends in Guinea Bissau. I will warn your listeners that if looking at a map, it might look a little bit out of order. That is because, like most of Africa, or a lot of Africa, transportation can be challenging. And because, as you said, Guinea Bissau was my focal point,
Hmm.
I had to make lodge reservations at the Orango National Park. And that was based on the dates that I could get, which was at the end of my leave schedule. So my travel was based on that. So this itinerary worked great, or somebody could do them in a different order. But 2 weeks in the region, starting in the Gambia.
Okay.
Okay. So the Gambia is a country, was our favorite of all three countries. I'll add that I was traveling with my husband and a group of friends, so there were 7 of us. So when I tell you something was a favorite or not a favorite, it's more than just my opinion there. But the Gambia was beautiful. The country felt exceptionally respectful. Everybody we met was friendly and kind. You pass somebody on the street, they said hello. Most people struck up a conversation. These aren't just people in the tourist industry, the person sitting in front of the grocery store as well. We had 3 full days in the Gambia, which was enough to get a taste of it. I will add that while there are flights from Europe and Northern Africa, nobody flies there every day. So we flew there from Istanbul. Their flight was the most reasonably timed, and
I'm assuming that's Turkish Airlines.
yes, sorry, Turkish Airlines from Istanbul. And they actually have 2 flights a week. So I thought if for some reason we had travel trouble and missed it, then we could catch up. You can fly from Brussels and you can also fly from Casablanca. And if you're traveling from the US or Europe, that flight is probably more direct. But if you have a problem, then you're stuck for a week. So we flew on Turkish Airlines, had full 3 days. If anybody's looking at a map of the Gambia, it's obvious that the Gambia River is the lifeblood of the country.
Yeah.
The British pretty much drew a box around the river in the middle of Senegal and gave the rest of Senegal to the French. So I really wanted to spend some time on the river. And so my first day, I booked a lazy river tour. I'll also note that
Okay.
I did this on the first day. Again, if we had any air trouble, jet lag, all of those things. And I booked that tour through Bushwhacker Tours, which I really enjoyed and would recommend. Ali is the manager there. He was fantastic. Not only is his English better than mine, he got my sarcasm, he made jokes, and was willing to answer every question, not just about the river, but questions about the country and culture. And so he was really fantastic.
And when you describe this as a lazy river tour, I think a lot of people got the picture of the lazy river ride at some amusement park. That's not what we're talking about here. What
Oh, that
makes it a lazy river tour?
Oh, that's funny. You're right. That is definitely not what I am talking about. So it is just a lazy day. It is a 2-deck wooden boat. So the top deck, hang out and read, sunbathe, fish. Ali brought fishing poles, swim off the deck, and you're just meandering through the mangroves. Lunch was included, and it was a fantastic lunch. I have no idea how there was a small crew on board to take care of basic needs and food. And so it's probably about 6, 7 hours of going through the mangroves and just seeing the river. If somebody were to do more than 3 days in the Gambia, there are several companies that will do a longer 2 to 3 day glamping tour down the river, where you can also
Interesting.
see hippos and chimpanzees. And if I had had more time, I would have enjoyed doing that.
Okay.
On the second day, again, I used Bushwhacker Tours for a day tour. And this they call the Roots Tour. but it is where you are exploring the slavery trade from the British in the Gambia. So the Gambia was their hub of West African slave trade. I know there are several places in West Africa, unfortunately, that you can explore this history. One of
Hmm.
the things that makes the Gambia unique is there was a book and a mini series done that you've probably heard of.
Roots, sure, by
Um,
Alex Haley.
so this is the village and the, I guess, slave port that he, through the process and the horrific history of slavery, but it makes it much more personal.
Hmm. He being the main character in the first part of the book, who is Kunta Kinte.
Yes,
Hmm.
exactly. But that makes it a much more personal experience instead of thinking only about the horrific scale and numbers when you really read the book or see the movie before going, and then you are thinking about one individual and his family and his history
Mm.
that made the Roots Tour and the Kunta Kinte Island very unique. It is definitely a full day tour and picked up at your lodgings. You drive to the port where you take the ferry across the Gambia River. Everybody is using the ferry, from locals to traders to a handful of tourists. It is about 45 minutes across the river. And then we were picked up in a Jeep. We went to the museum where you walk around the museum. We had a separate tour guide. It is actually Gambia law policy that only somebody from the local village is allowed to be a tour guide for you. And
Sure.
again, that gives a different perspective. And then you get in a boat and go over to Kunta Kinte Island, where you explore the ruins, see the island, go back, have lunch, and then backtrack through the process to get back to your lodging. So that is a full
And it
day.
looks like the island itself was a slaving fort.
It was a British slaving fort, correct?
Okay.
And after the British outlawed slaving, they then used the island to monitor traffic on the river to make sure that nobody else was using the river or the port for slaving.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
One note for both of those tours, similar to when you end up booking a day tour in lots of countries around the world, but there are tons of people that are helpful and perform services along the way. And so just making sure that you have extra money to tip those people.
Got it.
2 ferries, a boat, an extra tour guide, lunch, lots of people trying to help make your experience as good as they can.
Got it. Okay.
And then for our third day, I hired a driver, and this driver actually does some work occasionally for Bushwhacker Tours, Solomon, and I have his contact information in my blog post about this. But I hired
Okay.
Solomon to take us around Banjul. I never feel like you really see a country until you've seen its capital.
Okay. And that's where you flew into, I assume.
It is where we flew into. There are actually very few hotels or accommodations inside the city center. And
Okay.
so most people are staying south of the capital. And so you do need either a taxi or a driver to actually get into the city. And while on that day tour, we did Kali Crocodile Pool, which actually sounds a lot more touristy than it is. I read fantastic reviews and I specifically asked Solomon to take us there, but I had pretty low expectations. But it turns out this is a 400-year-old crocodile pool. It has some religious significance, some cultural significance,
Hmm.
and it's just a fun way to spend an hour and a half.
Huh. It was a sacred crocodile pool. Those are words that I'm not used to going together, but okay.
Yeah, exactly. So that made for a unique adventure. We went to the Banjul National Museum, also pretty small, but we probably spent a little over an hour there looking at the exhibits, learning about the culture, learning about some of the history. He took us to the market, the Albert Market, which is, I don't know how many blocks large. It was quite a large market, and we walked around looking at the local items for sale. There were a few tourist items for sale. He showed us some of the unique fruit and delicacies of the area before taking us to a beach resort for lunch. which was a great meal and just beautiful sitting there on the beach.
Okay.
A few things that I probably should have mentioned up front, but I will mention now. Flying into Banjul, once you're at the airport, that is a pretty easy process. Going in and out of the airport, you pay a $20 security fee each way. Americans and most Western tourists do need a visa. For
Okay.
Americans, that was about $108. I want to say $110. You have to go to a separate room to do that. That process was very easy, probably took about 15 minutes.
Oh, visa on arrival. Got it. Okay.
Visa on arrival took about 15 minutes for us to do. Baggage was a mess, so plan on that or carry on. And then I did not see an ATM in the airport. Throughout the country, they take US dollars and euro. It is a mental calculation. Be prepared to round up and be iffy on the change. So I'd make it a priority to go to an ATM if you think you're going to be spending money out in the local economy. There were taxis available, or you can have a ride set up on arrival, which is what we did through our hotel. We stayed at the Nujala Boutique Hotel. I would highly recommend it. It is not a large all-inclusive resort, which is what I wanted. I wanted a smaller hotel, a bit off the beaten path. Your basic comforts, a comfortable bed, a shower. It was clean. The people were friendly, and it is right on the ocean, not suitable for swimming or sunbathing, but you could keep your doors open at night and hear the ocean waves. And so it was a fantastic place to be.
And not suitable for swimming because of some of those aforementioned crocodiles or pollution or...
No, because it's on a cliff. So there's no
okay.
beach.
Well, got
You're
it.
hearing the ocean over the cliff, but not quite on the beach.
Okay. Rakuten opens up a world of rewards. You can earn cash back on fashion, beauty, electronics, pet supplies, kid stuff, groceries. But what I'm here to tell you is with Rakuten, you can get cash back on travel too. Join and save on your next trip. You'll get cash back on the flight, the hotel, and the car rental. Book on your favorite travel sites like Expedia, Booking.com, Viator, VRBO, Hotels.com, IHG, and more. Save on cruises, vacation packages, and experiences as well. And don't worry, cashback can be earned on top of your credit card points with many loyalty programs because we know you're saving every way you can. So go ahead, take a trip, find the perfect hotel, book an artesian cheese experience inside a cave in Spain. Wherever you want to go with Rakuten. Join today for free. Go to Rakuten.com or get the app. That's Rakuten. And thanks to Rakuten for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. Some people hate to plan travel. That's going to come as a surprise to you because for some of you, this is an adventure, this is a joy, this is a journey, this is a puzzle. And you might consider becoming a Fora travel advisor. As a Fora advisor, you can take your love of planning travel and help others travel as well. The Fora Tech platform, training, and community give you everything you need to turn your passion for travel planning into a flexible, meaningful, profitable travel business. As a Fora travel advisor, you get best-in-class training, powerful booking tech, and a global community of experts and fellow advisors who help you share insider knowledge to help you launch and grow your own travel business with confidence. Every hotel, cruise, or activity you book as a Fora advisor earns you money in the form of commission or a percentage of the booking costs. Getting started can be as easy as booking trips for people you may already be booking trips for. Become a Fora advisor today at foratravel.com/traveler. That's FORA travel.com/traveler. And make sure that you tell them I sent you. foratravel.com/traveler. And thanks to Fora for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. As long as I brought up crocodiles, I do have to ask you about a picture in your blog post, which I will link to, about your 2 weeks spent in this area. As I see a picture of you at the crocodile museum, sacred pool, petting a crocodile. Now, I would grant that you were petting the end without the teeth, but I believe this will be the stuff of my nightmares tonight. But
Yeah, so that is a real picture. It is not a robot crocodile. So once you get there, you will get a guide who works there at the crocodile pool. He will show you how to pet them, take you around to the back. And during your time there, I don't even know how many dozens of crocodiles we saw. There were tons of crocodiles, but they are fat, dumb, and happy and have no interest in causing you any problems as long as you respect the rules.
okay. I will take your word for it.
Yeah, but certainly something unique.
Yep, absolutely.
So those were our 3 days in the Gambia. We then flew out from Banjul to Dakar. This is one of the areas that if I were to repeat this trip or give my itinerary to a friend, I might suggest that they look into taking the ferry and then arranging a transport north to Dakar. I think once you've done the process of getting to the airport security, flight delays, it might have been faster or at least the same amount of time and definitely more scenic than the inside of an airport. So that's probably worth considering.
But it looks like Banjul to Dakar is somewhere less than 80 miles.
Yep, it will definitely take you longer than that based on African roads, but I don't think it would take as long as you want. I was intimidated by the idea of the ferry, which will become amusing as I continue this story, but it turns out that probably would have been easy and fine, and especially once you've done it to get to do Kunta Kinte Island, by the time you're doing it on your own, you've already got a feel for it.
Got it.
So Dakar, obviously the capital of Senegal. In Dakar, arrival was straightforward. I had hired a transport to our hotel. This is the only place that we stayed that was a chain hotel. We stayed at the Accor Pullman Hotel. I definitely have mixed feelings about this hotel. It was beautiful and luxury. It had a great pool on the beach, wonderful food, but it was large. It was busy. There was a lot of confusion about our reservation, what it included, what didn't include. I tried to speak to a manager. That did not work out. But it is definitely a beautiful hotel and it is in the center of town. So it's in a great location. On day one, I had arranged a day tour to go to Bandia Park, which is a safari park. If anybody has done a safari in East Africa or Southern Africa, this is not that. This is a much, much smaller park and not as many animals. But if this is your first trip to Africa, as it was for one of the people in our group, my husband had done a safari in Tanzania, but it had been a long time. So we thought it would be great to get out and see the local wildlife. It did not disappoint. We saw giraffes, zebras, turtles, hyenas, elands, impala, crocodiles, buffalo, rhinos, monkey, and ostrich, and antelope, and then a ton of birds. So definitely a great morning out just seeing the wildlife.
Cool.
There is also a lion sanctuary next door. We did not do that. I could not find enough information online and through research to see really how ethical that was. I couldn't get a feel for their enclosures in the side of the park. So I'm making absolutely no judgment there, but we did not do that. But I'd like your listeners to know that is right there and often combined with Bandia Park.
Okay.
I will mention that in Dakar, that first night we had dinner at, I'm going to mispronounce this, La Pointe de Almeidas, but it is the westernmost lighthouse on the continent of Africa. They have a marvelous restaurant, a great view of the city and the water. And if you're there for dinner, you get the sunset. It was my favorite meal in Africa. And actually, I live in Washington, D.C., and it compares to a nice restaurant out here. I had some wonderful risotto there. So I would highly recommend that as a place to go and see the sunset, see the ocean, and have a great meal.
Okay.
For our second full day, and this was really the reason I wanted to go to Dakar, we did a day trip to Gorée Island. Goree Island was a major slave trading center from the 15th to the 19th century and is preserved today as a World Heritage Site. Goree Island and Senegal proper was governed by the French. And so one of the things I was interested in doing was comparing Gambia, which was ruled by the British, and Senegal, which was ruled by the French. And then also the Gambia, Kunta Kinte Island has had very little restoration done to that fort, whereas Goree Island has had a lot of restoration. It's been very well preserved and is still an island that people live and work on today. And so that was a wonderful comparison. I had read that most of the signage was in French and that it was hard to do on your own. So I had hired a guide. I don't think a guide was necessary. There was not as much French as I was led to believe. And it would have been a wonderful place to walk around on your own, or to have an audio guide, or to hire a tour guide, but not nearly as intimidating as I thought it would be.
Got it.
The only tip there is for the ferry terminal, get there early. The morning ferry leaves at 10 a.m. and the ticket line was a bit chaotic, but not rocket science to figure that out. I did not have more time in Dakar, and I'll explain that in a second, but if I had the extra days I had originally planned, I really wanted to do the Museum of Black Civilizations. I wanted to go out to Nogor Island, do some snorkeling, do some diving. And if I had had even more time, I would have gone north to the UNESCO site, St. Louis, which is a separate city a couple of hours north. The reason I did not have that time, and this is really what made this an adventure, we were to fly from Dakar to Guinea-Bissau on ASCII Airlines. And a little bit before our trip, I got a note from ASCII that they changed our flight itinerary, except instead of by a few minutes or even hours, it changed by an entire day, which meant I would miss our transportation out to Orango National Park, which, as I said, that was the entire reason we were in West Africa. So that was not going to work out. And finding alternate transportation between Dakar and Bissau turns out to be quite challenging because there are no other flights. So there were no flights from Dakar to Bissau over about a 4-day period. And you can also not fly from Gambia direct to Bissau. So unless I wanted to go through Casablanca or somewhere in Europe, I had to figure out another route. So this is where I had done a little research, and then I reached out to Scooch Travel, and they specialize in trips and tours in West Africa. And they'd given me some advice, and then they ended up booking the overnight ferry for me. The overnight ferry can only be booked in person, so it's not something I could do from the United States, and I am too much of a planner to wait until I got there because the cabins can book out fast. I was a little wary of what a overnight ferry from Dakar to southern Senegal would look like. You actually go to Ziguinchor, Senegal, and it takes about 15 hours. I will tell you, I was very pleasantly surprised, and it ended up being a highlight of the trip. As you can imagine, not a ton of tourists on there. We booked a cabin, which was about $70 for a cabin. It was very comfortable. We had 2 cabins with 2 beds and then 1 cabin with 4 beds. It had a private bathroom. Saw the sunrise and the sunset up on the top deck, saw dolphins. It was a fantastic trip, and I would highly recommend it.
Interesting.
Once we got to Ziguinchor, Scooch Travel had arranged for us to get our visas to go into Guinea-Bissau. If you fly in, you can get them on arrival, but if you're doing a land border, then you need your visas ahead of time. And there's a consulate in Ziguinchor, so we did that. That was a 15-minute process, super easy. And they had then arranged a bike tour for us in the Casamance region, which is that southern area of Senegal, just to the southwest of Ziguinchor. And so we had a 12-kilometer bike ride that took us around to a small cashew farm. We saw several small temples and memorials. We saw some sacred drums. And then completely unexpected, some drums started to beat from a local village, and it turned out there was a funeral that was just starting. And so we ended up going to see the first probably half hour, 45 minutes of this funeral, the dancing, the community, and everybody was so welcoming. It was a fantastic experience and wonderful to hear the music and to see the dancing and the local community come together.
Interesting. I don't know that I've ever crashed a funeral before, but
Yeah, fantastic. And it was just interesting to see even the children were practicing the dancing and taking a video of the dancing. It was a male who had died. And so then it's the males who do the dancing, the traditional dancing. They have to be an initiated member of the tribe. But it was fantastic. And I've got some pictures of that in that blog post.
Yep, I saw that.
Yep. Also, the hotel we stayed in Singapore, I'm not even going to try and pronounce. It is in the blog post. But for about half our group, it was their favorite hotel. It was a small local hotel, great value, right on the water, a fantastic restaurant. When we asked for 2 wines, they actually brought us 2 bottles when we had intended 2 glasses. So we quickly corrected that, but it was fantastic.
And I understand why you're hesitating in pronouncing this. There are letters in there that just clearly do not belong. So
Yes. Yeah.
MRG should not be a combination of letters that ever exists. But
yes, and I don't even know that I heard somebody pronounce it while I was there.
okay.
I'll leave that alone. And then our final trek was the next day into Guinea-Bissau, overland transport that, again, Scoots Travel helped us arrange. It is about 5 hours over unpaved roads. The border was uneventful. You need to make sure you have a copy of your passport. Our bags were searched, but nothing that felt threatening or was a particular delay.
5 hours and you're just going into Bissau itself?
Yes. And if you're looking at a map, that does look very short.
Yes. Huh.
Yes. And so Bissau is the capital of Guinea-Bissau. I looked that up, and essentially there were several colonial countries with Guinea in their name. And so as independence came at various times during the 20th century, Guinea-Bissau was actually the last of those, and so it could not be named Guinea. And so they added on the Bissau, which is the name of the capital. That is at least what I read online.
Okay.
They had a coup in November of 2025. My trip was over the holidays 2025, 2026. So I was a little worried about taking that trip. They do have a history of instability and coups. And as you look online, though, they'll often call it a fake coup. And once I got there, I definitely could see why people have said that in the past. There was absolutely no violence. People were exceptionally friendly. It was a very laid back, low key city. Not a ton to do within the city, so I wouldn't plan lots of time in Bissau, but it was definitely a wonderful place to visit and very different than Banjul or Dakar.
Okay. I don't know about you, but I like keeping my money where I can see it. Unfortunately, traditional big wireless carriers also seem to like keeping my money too. Before Mint Mobile asked about being a sponsor in the show, I was already looking at Mint Mobile because what they offer, the same towers, the same service for less money, was something that appealed to me. After years of overpaying for wireless, I finally got fed up with crazy high wireless bills, bogus fees, and free perks that actually cost more in the long run. Stop overpaying for wireless just because that's how it's always been. Mint exists purely to fix that. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. If you like your money, Mint Mobile is for you. Shop plans at mintmobile.com/traveler. That's mintmobile.com/traveler. Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month 5-gigabyte plan required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. And thanks to Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, What's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
So we stayed at the Royal Guinea-Bissau Hotel. It's Lebanese owned. It's comfortable. It is very central downtown. It has a lovely rooftop, a decent breakfast. They take credit card, Euro, CFA, and so that was a great place. While we were there, we went to the No Cow restaurant, which I would also recommend. We actually ate there twice, and the hotel's right next to a gelato cafe. And we did have an afternoon on the way back where we visited the craft market, which is an easy walk from the hotel.
You said the No Cow restaurant.
Yep, it is spelled Nokau, but it's pronounced No Cow.
Okay. It has nothing to do with the animal. Okay.
Nope, nothing to do with an animal. It actually means our place.
Oh, okay.
And I should point out that Guinea-Bissau was Portuguese. So between the three countries, you've gone from Great Britain to France to now Portuguese heritage.
Okay.
But then it was time to go to Orango National Park, which was the focal point of my trip. I had actually booked our reservations back in May for us to go in January, and I got the last dates of the season. I wanted to see baby turtles hatching, and I got the very last dates of the season. So if you're planning to go to Guinea-Bissau, this is something that you want to book well in advance.
Okay.
Like most places in the world, turtles lay their eggs October, November, and then they hatch December, early January. From downtown Bissau to Orango Park Hotel, that is still quite the journey. So if you're not done with traveling by the time you got to Bissau, you've still got a ways to go. So we had a 1 hour mid-morning drive to the port, and then it's about a 3.5 hour boat ride to the Park Hotel.
Okay.
Park Hotel consists of about 14 huts right on the beach. No frills, but very comfortable. Twin beds, bathroom, running water, electricity. About half of our group had self-service and about half did not.
Depending on what their carrier was, I assume.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
And then the lodge had a sat phone for any emergencies.
Got it.
The boat rides, when you're out in the archipelago, they can vary dramatically, obviously, based on the tides and the weather. We got lucky with that first one. Some later ones were quite a bit rougher.
I assume you're talking about a relatively small boat also.
We are talking about a very small boat.
Okay.
Yes, and you are way out west in the Atlantic.
Yep.
So the hotel, they are actually a nonprofit, and they partner with the local village, and portion of the proceeds from the hotel are invested in the community. And while you're there, you can do a walking tour out to the local community, walk around the village, meet some of the people. And so that was really special. They have a very unique culture. And again, I've got a link in my blog that links to some of the unique cultures. It's an isolated community, and so there's been a lot less change over the last several decades and centuries. So the first day, full day on the island, we were up early, and we took another boat ride, only about a half hour, 45 minutes, to see hippopotamuses.
Okay.
I've seen hippopotamuses in other areas of the world. This is the first time I had done it on land walking. And so you take the boat to another side of the island, and then you are walking for about 2 miles through sand and savanna jungle until you get to the pool where the hippos are hanging out, and you watch them from a distance.
Yeah, hippos are definitely something I prefer watching from a distance.
Yeah. Yes. And
they're fun to watch, but we had one guide I know who said they're born mean.
Yes. And I was surprised we were doing it on land. I thought based on the water activity and taking a boat there that we would be in a boat as well. But no, the boat was just to get to where you were walking. So that was definitely different. The next day was the turtle day. And this is really what I wanted to do. And so you have another 4-hour boat ride. This one was rougher. It is not as sheltered. You're going out past some of the other islands. So it was a bit of a rougher trip. Great support from the park hotel. There were about 5 individuals with us who were helping with beds and food and helping us make this a wonderful experience. We had lunch at an island en route, got to the island for the turtles, hung out for a while, had dinner, and they'd set up tents and cots right off the beach.
Oh,
And so
okay.
we went to sleep. They told us to be up at 11 p.m. We got up at 11 p.m. to go see turtles and walked around for about 2 hours and did not see any turtles. I was devastated, absolutely devastated. I think that is for us because we were at the very tail end of the season and there was evidence of turtles just the day before. Went to sleep. I got up with the sun. I was walking along the beach trying to tell myself that it was still a magnificent trip. We had seen so many great things, done so many amazing things. And just as I'm giving myself this pep talk, our guide yells turtles. And we all ran to the spot and saw probably about 60 baby turtles pushing their way out of the sand and start making their way to the ocean. And it was everything that I hoped and wanted it to be, and even more. Probably better because we got to see it during the daylight. Completely magical.
Very cool.
Yeah, definitely worth the trip to get there. And this beach has about 5% of the world's turtles.
I saw that. That's a stunning amount.
Yes. And you can believe it when you're there, the number of eggs and the number of turtle tracks, you can definitely believe that.
Okay.
I'd note that a trip to Orango requires a moderate level of fitness, nothing extreme, but you are getting in and out of boats, no dock, no stairs. So you're doing that from the water's edge. And then to see hippos and on the turtle beach, you're walking a mile or two in sand. Not fast, not extreme. You're not carrying your own bags, but
Got it.
you need a moderate level of fitness. I am a planner and I tend to travel fast. And as I was making all of these arrangements, it felt like a really long time to be in Orango, even though it was the highlight. And I kept trying to figure out if I could cut out a day. As I was there and saw how small the boat was, how much you are relying on the tide schedule, how much logistic support goes into each of these events, I think 4 nights is the right amount of time. It's not for the budget traveler, so it was just under 900 euros a person, but that's for 4 nights at a remote beach bungalow where everything has to be brought in by boat. It includes all the fuel for the boat. It includes the salaries for dozens of people. I think it was very well worth the expense, and I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Okay.
So yeah, that is our trip in a nutshell.
I assume from there you had to get back and retrace all your steps. Did you fly out of Guinea-Bissau or?
Yes, we did. Yes, retraced all our steps, the 4-hour boat trip back to Orango National Park, and then the 3-hour boat trip back to the mainland, the 1-hour drive back to Bissau, and then the following day flew out of Bissau. You can fly to Lisbon, Casablanca, or Senegal are really the 3 locations that you can fly to out of Bissau. I flew to Lisbon, did a little bonus 24 hours in Lisbon, and then flew back to Washington, D.C.
Excellent. Before we try and retrace your footsteps, what else do we need to know about this trip?
I definitely think it is worth it. It is a trip that requires some planning. It is not necessarily a trip that you would do on a whim, but I think it is definitely worth it and beautiful.
Excellent. As we get to some of our wrap-up questions, you know what to expect here. You're standing in the prettiest spot in this whole thing. Are you on the beach with little tiny turtles?
I am on the beach with little tiny turtles. I'm seeing the sunrise, the sunset, the Milky Way, and seeing little tiny turtles scamper from their nest to the ocean to start their journey.
Excellent. One thing that makes you laugh and say only in West Africa.
Maybe crashing a funeral, being invited, just such welcoming people who, no matter what we were doing, we just felt like such respect and openness and friendliness and wanting to share their culture and their country with us.
Excellent. And if you had to summarize this region in just 3 words, what 3 words would you use?
I think I would say nature, I would say culture, and I would say history.
Excellent. Not necessarily some great history, but definitely significant.
Definitely significant history, but even putting the horrificness of the slave trade aside, understanding the history of the region and where the tribes intersect, and understanding recent history and how claiming their culture and their rightful spot in the world and their natural resources. There's ancient history and then there's current history, and they are both interesting and worth learning about.
Excellent. Our guest again is Jenny Fletcher. And again, the website is lifekinetictravel.com. And I'm going to recommend the post that I've been looking at this whole time with the 2 weeks in Gambia, Senegal, and Guinea-Bissau. And I'll link that in the show notes. Jenny, thanks so much for coming on Amateur Traveler and sharing with us your obvious love, newfound love for West Africa.
Thanks so much, Chris. It's been a pleasure. Love talking about travel and love talking about West Africa.
So you're saying with Hilton Honors, I can use points for a free night stay anywhere?
Anywhere.
What about fancy places like the Canopy in Paris?
Yeah, Hilton Honors, baby.
Or relaxing sanctuaries like the Conrad in Tulum?
Hilton Honors, baby.
Ooh, what about the 5-star Waldorf Astoria in the Maldives?
Are you gonna do this for all 9,000 properties?
When you want points that can take you anywhere, anytime, it matters where you stay. Hilton, for the stay. Book your spring break now.
Good things come in fours, like ukulele strings, boy band members, and PayPal Pay in 4. No fees, no interest, no impact on your credit score. Just the flexibility to pay the way that works for you. Strum it, hum it, pay it in 4. Download the PayPal app to get started. Subject to approval. Learn more at paypal.com/payin4. PayPal Inc. NMLS 910457.
My thanks to Jenna and also to the patrons of the show who help support Amateur Traveler financially. I'm going to be meeting with the patrons of the show this Saturday for our monthly Zoom call. If you're interested in learning how you can become a patron of the show, go to patreon.com/Amateur Traveler. I'm just back from Saxony, from Leipzig and Dresden and some other wonderful and cool places that you will hear about in a couple weeks on the show. And then I'm off again to Spain fairly soon for another press trip. And not long after that, I'm going to be meeting some of you in Uzbekistan, and I'm looking forward to it. And speaking of Amateur Traveler trips, the voting is done, and the Amateur Traveler trip in 2027 will be to Bolivia. I don't have the details yet, but you'll be finding those at amateurtraveler.com/trips if you're interested in joining me next year. I heard recently from Jacques, who said, loved your last 2 episodes. Would not mind more Hidden Gems episodes. And this is the episode about hidden gems of London. And I think we're going to do one coming up on Paris. The tip about the National Trust membership is great. I did something similar in France with the Centre du Monument Pass. This got my travel companion and me into many of the sites we wanted to see. But even more importantly, we were able to use the member entrance or line, which saved us hours of waiting in line. Good to know. When we breezed past the line for the Arc de Triomphe, we felt like royalty. Cheers, Jacques. Thanks, Jacques. And Jacques was surprised that I wrote back, but I actually give the email out on the show because I respond. So just so you know. I also heard from Simon on the same episode, who said, I really enjoyed your recent episode on London's hidden gems. I lived in London for 20 years, and I wasn't aware of some of those gems myself. However, I wonder if your listeners might be interested in a couple of other suggestions. Southwark Cathedral seems very central these days, as it stands right by the south side of the River Thames, just off London Bridge. But it has a lot of history with some fascinating American connections. In the cathedral graveyard is a memorial to Mamut Mwayonoman, a Native American chief who came to London in 1735 to reclaim lands the English had taken off his people. He died of smallpox while in London, but because he was a foreigner, he could not be buried within the boundaries of the City of London, just over the London Bridge, so they placed him in the cemetery of Southwark Cathedral. The cathedral is also the place where the founder of Harvard University was baptized in 1607, so there is a memorial plaque inside the church for him too. As for the afternoon tea, yes, we didn't have a good recommendation for that. Can I recommend St. Ermin's Hotel not far from Westminster? This was well known from the 1730s as the place members of the UK's secret services would meet, but it also became the place where the famous Cambridge 5 spy ring would meet to pass on secrets to the KGB over a cup of tea. The hotel displays all sorts of spy paraphernalia, including a waistcoat vest with messages cleverly sewn into the lining, which was apparently left in the men's room downstairs. Thank you for your great work. I look forward to your next episode, Simon. Thanks so much, Simon, and especially for the afternoon tea recommendation. And with that, we're going to end this episode of Amateur Traveler. If you have any questions, send an email as Simon and Jacques did to chris2x@gmail.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. And as always, thanks so much for listening.